Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of the DM show. Milena and I are, well, yeah, we're both excited. If you're watching our YouTube video, you will see that Milena is having a snack while we are going to be having an amazing guest with us. So if you are here morning, afternoon, evening, get you a snack too and just join us. We actually have somebody that I feel like is kind of special. It's funny because neither one of us knew that we were both adopted. So it's just kind of interesting how that came about. Yeah.
I don't know if you told me that. All I know is
I'm sorry.
I don't know if I remember that.
Did I
You just
leave
said
that
that
part
he was
out?
adopted. What?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm
That's
sorry.
cool.
I left that part out.
No, I like that.
James is our guest tonight, and he and I go to church together. And he actually came across my Instagram page and then came across our podcast page and then sent me a message and was like, "Oh my gosh, I did not know you're adopted. I'm adopted too." And I was like, "Wait a minute, hold the phone. Are you really?" Hold on. It's like this thing. I feel like when adoptees find each other, we meet each other, we find out, we're like, tell me all the things. But I'm really excited because Melina and I are going to be learning the story at the same exact time because
Yep.
James is like, if you would like me to come on, I was like, I would love for you to come on. I would love for you to come on and share your story. So, yeah, without further ado, James, go ahead, take it away.
Well, thank you very much. That was a very humbling intro. I appreciate that. I need to take you on the campaign trail with me. So yeah, like you said, we go to church together and known each other for a while, and very proud of the day you got baptized at church. I had to come up and give you a hug, even though you're still wet. It's very very cool to see that. I think I got a little bit of it on video on my phone. Didn't know you were out there doing that day. But anyway, like I told you the other night last week, whenever I came across your Instagram page, we're friends on Facebook, and it had the adoption stuff. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I was like, I've always known there was something a little extra special about Delaney. I mean, that's all there is to it. We love her to death. And so anyway, so I reached out to her and told her, yeah, I'm adopted as well. And my story is kind of really simple. There's not a lot to it. It's something I want to get into in just a minute with another adoptee I think y'all will love so much. I've always known I was adopted. I was adopted as a baby. And so it was never like, oh, you find out one day and you're shocked. I've always known, and I've always had great parents. So I have no regrets, no ill wills. I know people have asked me, well, do you want to find your birth parent? I said, well, there's only one reason I'd ever want to find them is if there was an illness in my family and we're looking for like a donor or something like that. So I don't have any ill will towards my birth parents at all because I had a wonderful life. I had great parents growing up, and I always tell people that I was kind of chosen. So, that's always the cool part about it.
Delancey says that too. Sorry, I had to interrupt
all the
I
time.
love that.
Oh no, not a problem. Yeah,
all the time.
We're the chosen ones. I mean, that's
we're the chosen. We're gifts. We are gifts.
I love it.
And so every time I've run across somebody that's adopted, you kind of share the stories, kind of like what you're talking about. My touching story is I have a daughter who's 30, and she grew up playing soccer. So we went all over the country with her travel select team. We had a girl who I'm still friends with this day. Her parents are great. That played on her soccer team. This is back when they were teenagers. So this has been a long time ago when this story actually took place. And her mom and dad and my wife and I would go eat together. We always stayed in the same hotels or whatever while we were traveling. Well, somehow the conversation came up about me being adopted, and they didn't say anything at the time. And it was probably a couple weeks later, we were at another tournament. I remember very distinctly, we were in Hoover, Alabama, one of our yearly tournaments we went to every year. And her mom came up to me and was like, hey, Jamie, do you mind if I talk to you for a minute? I need to ask you a question. And I got to thinking, well, I'm in law enforcement. It's probably going to be something about law enforcement question because you get those all the time. And she says, I remember a few weeks back, we were at some other tournament that you had mentioned that you were adopted. I'm like, yeah. I said, I've always known I was adopted. Kind of told her my little story. And she said, well, can I ask you a favor? I need to tell you a story. I'm like, yeah, sure. She goes, I need your help. I'm like, okay, what do you need my help with? She said, well, I'm a nurse, and she worked at the South Central Regional Medical Center in Laurel, which is just north of us. And she said she was working ER one night, and a young girl came in, was pregnant, and had started having contractions on her way passing through Mississippi and happened to be passing through Laurel. When she gets there, she ends up going into labor, has the baby, and she's one of the nurses taking care of her and the NIC, or not NICU, but the baby side of it. Anyway, so uh, through the discussions over the next day or so or whatever, she's talking about how she can't raise the kid and this and that and the other. Well, so Brooke's mom ends up going home talking to her husband, like, "Hey, this is what's going on at the hospital. I really want to adopt this girl." And so, long story short, they adopt Brooke. And then Brooke finds out later in life that she's adopted. And right around this time is whenever she had found out about it. Like I said, they were teenagers. And so she didn't have a lot of struggles with it, but she did have some. So she was telling me the story and said, "Can you talk to Brooke? Because you two have always been friends." She was almost like a niece to me. She kind of hung out with Kimberly, our daughter, a lot when we were on the road or whatever. So, she was kind of one of the cool kids. And I'm still friends with her to this day. So she's going to be shocked whenever she hears I did this podcast. But anyway, so we go out to eat that night. That was during one of the soccer games that day. So we go out, it's just us and them. We go out to eat in this restaurant and we're sitting there. And I said, "Brooke," I said, "you know how me and you are buddies?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, me and you are something special." She goes, "Really? What's that, Mr. Jamie?" I was like, "We're both adopted. We're the chosen ones." And she started crying. I started crying. Everybody started crying at the table. And so I got to tell her, I was like, you got to remember you're special. Your mother and your father are wonderful. Your birth mother is wonderful. She made the right choice. You've grown up, and you would have never met me if she wouldn't have put you up for adoption. And now I'm kind of making light of it or whatever. But anyway, so through the rest of that soccer season, it kind of made a bond between Brooke and I and stuff like that. And so called her our second daughter there for a long time. Still friends with her to this day. She's a teacher in Laurel. She actually coaches soccer at one of the high schools up there now and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my backstory to any, touching stuff with that. And it was really neat at the time because, as a teenager, 15, 16-year-old girl at the time, playing soccer, and having all these friends and this, that, and the other. Sometimes it got to be tough on her when she found out that she was adopted. So, but that was kind of where my little story was as far as the adoption stuff goes. I was really, really blessed and honored to have that opportunity to talk with her at that level and made a difference. So, now it's just like every time we do chat a little bit, it's always pretty cool. So,
no, that's amazing. Can I ask? So with her,
absolutely,
she didn't find out until she was a teenager that she was adopted. So they didn't tell her. Do I understand that correctly?
I think that's the way it went. They didn't tell her. I don't know how it came about. I don't know if her mom got to a point where, like, hey, I think she's old enough now. Maybe that was her parental decisions. Gotcha. Like I said, with me, I can't remember a time where I didn't know.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know what age I actually was told. I mean, I can't remember past last week sometimes.
I feel that. I get that so much.
Yeah. But and I think that's where the struggles were, because she just didn't know, I mean, obviously at a certain age, if you find that out, it's like, why this, why that, and all that kind of stuff. And so I understand that. And I think that was where, when her mom heard that I'd said that on the sidelines at one of the soccer games weeks before, it's like, well, maybe he'll be able to talk to her and kind of help her out, mentor her a little bit. And so, and that was one thing, like I said, we've got that special bond. We're the chosen kids, type of deal. Right. So it really helped her out a lot. I thought that was really cool.
I think that's great that her parents did that because I mean, there's lots of people that would like want to put the hammer down. Even me, I'm kind of like, why didn't they tell her? But at the same time, like when you're a parent, you're just trying to do your damn best. And for them to reach out to you and be like, hey, can you help us? Like, we may have not done this how we thought was best. And I think that's so, and I love that you made it lighthearted to where, well, now you know me and your life would suck without me in it. Like, I love that because, you know what I mean? Facts. Because, and I love it so much. Oh, I love it. I just love it. Yeah. Clancy, do you have anything?
No, I was just like, I was curious because, I've always known, Melina has always known, like you've always known, but like, do you remember, I mean, obviously, I feel like obviously our parents explained it to us like in an age appropriate way. Do you remember how like they initially explained it to you that you were adopted or how they like, cause I mean, like I struggle with the remembering past last week too. Like both our schedules are so wackadoodle crazy that it's like, it's not written down. I don't remember it. Yeah. But like, cause I remember when I was younger, my mom would tell me I was the pick of the litter. Like that was how she initiated that. I mean,
that's awesome.
Does it shock you though? Like now that, like, I mean, since you know me and like Melina knows me, it's very fitting that that's how she explained it to me. Do you have like recall how they explained it to you when you were younger?
I have no recollection. That's why I say I've always known because I can't remember them ever telling me. It's just like, as far as my memory serves me, is and I was adopted. I was 5 days old when all the paperwork and everything was done. I've seen some old footage, old pictures, from all those days, but there's no recollection of, hey, sit down, we need to tell you something. So I'm just assuming that I grew up, I guess, as a kid, as you start having some kind of intelligence level of understanding certain things. I'm just assuming that my parents always told me that. So, that's the only thing I can really come up with.
So, and to follow that up with, are you like, because this is actually surprisingly, because I'm not sure about your, like, are you an only child? Do you have siblings?
I am an only child. I am the only troublemaker. So I couldn't blame nothing on nobody. If the lamp got broke, guess who did it?
I was about to say, what was that like? Because I at least like have my sisters to blame for why I am the way that I am. I can blame my sister Brittany that lives here and be like, oh, it's her fault. I'm weird. Like,
absolutely.
like,
I'd blame everything on Brittany. That's exactly what I would do. And you can tell her I said that.
I definitely will. I definitely for sure will.
Oh.
So only child. Oh my gosh. That was like.
Yeah, I had a lot of imaginary friends.
Yeah.
Did your parents have infertility issues? I mean, I don't know if that's or did they just want to adopt?
Well, no, my mom had some type of, and I'm just going to kind of paraphrase this. I think she had a hysterectomy at early age or something like that, so she couldn't have kids.
Okay.
And so, the whole thing to me sounded like a great blessing, because, like I said, I had great parents. They were wonderful people, and I never went without anything, stuff like that. We weren't rich, but we weren't hurting. So I was
right.
No, I love that. I love that so much. And I love that you've come on and said that you because I feel like it's so different with every adoptee. Like, do you want to find your birth parents? Do you not want to find your birth parents? But I love that, I feel like you're on the same wavelength as me and Delancey, to where you may have interest in it, but you're so grateful for your parents that nothing will deter you from them, that they are your parents. And I know that scares a lot of adoptive parents, but all three of us, you ask any one of us, our parents are our parents, you know what I mean? And like you said, thank you, birth mom, for what you did for me, but this is my mom and this is my dad, you know what I mean? So I love that. I love that you said that.
Well, another thing, like with my extended family, aunts, uncles, and stuff like that, it was, there was never a lack of love from anybody in my extended family as well, with the Christmas times or whatever. And so, I mean, I've got family that lives in North Dakota, and I very rarely see them. But when I do, it's like we pick up where we left off from 10 years ago, the last time we saw each other, or whatever, Obviously, the day and age of Zooms and Facebooks and, FaceTimes is easier. But back in the day, when we were all growing up as kids, it would be 5 or 6, 7, 8 years before we'd see each other, make a phone or something. But yeah, my extended family has been wonderful as well. I mean, they've always been solid family. So I never had anything I missed out on. So that was really, really a good blessing.
So I love that. I love that you said that your extended family is close. Because I hate to admit it, but it's funny because my sisters will say a name. My older, all three of them will say a name, and I'll go, "Who's that?" And they're like, "That's our cousin." And I'm going, "Oh." No clue, because they're all the same age range, so they all kind of grew up together, and I'm so much younger than all of them, so much younger than all of them, that I didn't have that opportunity to know them. So I think that's really great that you and your extended family are able to have that connection, that relationship. Yeah. You and Melena, I don't know if you caught this, but law enforcement background, I almost feel like, do you feel like coming from, and I don't know how to word this and ask this correctly, so I'm just going to ask it the best way I know how. Do you feel like being an adoptee gives you almost a leg up on certain calls when you were in law enforcement? Because there are certain calls I would feel like would maybe give you a leg up, but I'm not sure because I'm not a police officer, so I don't know.
Yeah, there's you get to come from a mental state or a mental point whenever you're dealing with something like that. We obviously see a lot of families that are broken, families that are struggling. I've got a friend of mine that's going, trying to adopt a 15-year-old, and her kids are as old as mine, and taking on a 15-year-old whenever I'm in my 50s, but she's in her 60s, her and her husband, and they're retired, and they're taking this on. So you end up in a lot of calls where there's a lot of friction or whatever. So it has played a benefit to me in the past. Now, going back to, the law enforcement thing and having something to do with that, my mom, growing up as a kid, we grew up here in Hattiesburg, and every time we would pass a cop, my mom would wave at him. So there goes my buddy. So I grew up as a kid thinking, man, that's cool. My mom knows all the cops. And I didn't get, until I got older, I didn't realize she was saying, that's your friend. You don't know them, but if you ever need help, that's the person to go see. Go find a police officer. So, that drove me into going into law enforcement when I finally figured out what I wanted to do for a living. That was over 25 years ago, because, I retired last year, and now I'm trying to get back into it. But, so her influence of the way she visualized those people drove me into doing that. And I think having that experience can help out when it comes down to those domestic cases when kids are involved, for sure.
I love that. That's a great question, Delancey, because I don't think we've ever had anybody come on with that perspective. So I really love that you thought of that. Really.
It's definitely, it's something that I've thought about, because there is, and I'm not going to say the person's name, but there is somebody else that we mutually know that also has a very interesting adoption story and is also in law enforcement. And I've always thought about that question as well. I feel like when you come from that place, it's almost like, because those calls cannot be, I can't imagine what those calls are like at all. Like, I don't even want to think about that, because it's you don't know what you're walking up on in any call, really. In reality, is my understanding. You don't know what you're walking up on. But when there are kids involved, that is a whole other animal. Like, that's just a whole other thing. And especially with the different things that are going around social media right now, with anti-adoption, anti-fostering, all of these things. And I can only imagine it would be even more difficult. So I was just curious if that gave, and I'm really glad you answered that, because that's something that's been on my brain for a while. Like, how do you even deal with that?
Yeah. Well, you whenever you're going into those situations that you're it, and there's no one else really coming. There may be another cop coming or whatever, another law enforcement officer coming, but no one's going to come and say, all right, Jamie, I got this, you can leave. You've got social workers and stuff like that, but and they do play a role, but you're normally the first one there, making sure the scene is safe and having to deal with the initial incidents and stuff. So, having a comp head is really good. And you got to, in the back of your mind, like, okay, I got to drive through. I've got to help these people, got to help the kid. And like you said, that friend of ours that we both know that's in the same, adopted, me and him have a connection there. And I've mentored that little brat a lot too.
I'll agree with you on the brat part.
You push
he's like a little brother.
Because I know Delancey's been trying to get him to come on. Will you push him to come on, please, James?
Yeah. I'll take care of it.
If you want to mention that to him, because I've broached it with him, and I just think having you on here and having him on here and having both of that is
so
just
good. So good.
It'd be great to get both of us on here, because I don't know how much of his entire story but you want to talk about one that's going to take up the full amount of time where it's going to sit back and listen. Is his testimony is super strong. It's super insane. Strong. And I've mentored him a lot. As a matter of fact, he was a year behind my daughter in school, so he's kind of like a kid of mine. Yeah, my daughter graduated a year before he did. So it's small world.
It's interesting you say that, because he and my oldest niece went to school together, so that's how that connection. But that's.
Well, who's your niece you're talking about?
Brittany's oldest, Tori.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. She's
interesting. Interesting story. How I met your sister. We can get on that on another day.
I'm gonna need to know that story, because I told her that you were coming on, and she goes, "Why? Like, what?" And I was like, "You didn't know he's adopted?" And she goes, "Oh yeah." And then she tried to be all smarty pants, she goes, "I totally knew, because I know his." And then she goes, she's just so funny. She's like, "I know his," and she was just using the wrong verbiage. I was like, you don't know any of this. And she starts laughing. She was like, "I was trying." And I was like, "I know. You're saying God love you. You're trying so hard." But when I told her, she was like, "That's so cool. I had no idea." And I was like, we didn't know either. It's just really, it's really interesting how we can all just find each other.
Yeah. Yeah,
and we don't even
absolutely.
know it.
Yeah, they say like, twins have these connections or whatever. I think adoptees somehow have some kind of weird connection through time and space or something. I don't know.
No,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree too. Totally.
I agree with that. Question for you. Have you seen any information like about, because like you pretty much align with the way Melena and I look at things with adoption and everything like that. We know there are some terrible stories out there. We know
Yeah.
that. We know there's some hardship and everything like with anything in life. But have you seen anything on social media, Instagram, Facebook? I don't know if you're on TikTok, but anything about the anti-adoption trend where people blatantly, and it's usually adoptees, blatantly speak out about adoption? And if you have, what are your thoughts on that?
I haven't seen that. I heard you talking about that earlier in this podcast, and that was going to be one of my questions to you, is to kind of elaborate more on that. I haven't seen that. Obviously, most of my Instagram stuff is just things I follow with law enforcement world. A lot of the tactical side, because I was a SWAT guy for 17 years of my career, and so a lot of the shooting and training and stuff like that. And
so
then
you're a
no, I have not.
badass. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to interject.
Yeah.
You're like a badass.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, I know somebody that's in SWAT. I'm gonna start telling everybody that.
Oh Lord, yeah, I'll sign autographs later. But yeah, so that was interesting. You said that earlier, and I was going to ask that. I'm glad you brought it back up. I need to be more educated in that, especially coming out of a law enforcement career and looking to get back into another one as the top guy in the county. That's kind of interesting. So kind of inform me on that. What exactly is going on with that?
So, and Melena can expand on this too, because I've seen it more prevalently on TikTok, and she's seen it more prevalently on Instagram. On TikTok, I have come across certain content creators where it's almost like they do these blanket statements where they say adoption is child trafficking, adoption is slavery, adoption is all these terrible things. And what they focus on is because if you try to say, well, I understand where you're coming, this is my favorite, I understand where you're coming from, however, I have witnessed positive, blessings and things. Like there are blessings, there are advantages, there are and I've been muted before in lives and things like that, where they're all on a panel and they've said you're nothing but you have toxic positivity. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know it was possible to be toxic positivity or whatever, however that works. That was a new one for me, but it's kind of like they did speak some truth. I will say this, laws should be changed. It should not be as expensive. It should not be as difficult. There should be reunification. There should be things like that. Well, I agree with all of those things, but what are you doing outside of getting on a live and complaining and talking about trafficking and racism and all these other things? But what I've seen, Melena, you can expand a little bit more on stuff that you've seen is more direct on Instagram. Mine is more people just.
The toxic positivity shit just bugs the hell out of me. I swear that's something that they just bloomed up a year ago. And it's not just in adoption, it's everything. It's like, oh, I can't talk about I love myself. Oh, you're just being toxic. No, I'm not. Okay. I hate that stuff. Anyway,
so gross.
There was actually, Delancey, I wanted to talk to you about this too. There was this girl, she's a fellow Colombian adoptee that I actually stumbled upon because I saw a quote of hers, and she was so pissed off about the 4th of July because she's like, I don't know how, and I was talking to my husband about this. She's like, I don't know how I can be in a country that's racist and blah, 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 blah. And I just tell my husband this, and he goes, tell her to go move to Colombia. If she's a grown-ass adult, tell her to go move to Colombia and give it a shot. And I'm just dead, because I'm for me, I know this country has craziness going on. I know things can be better, but I'm so eternally blessed for it, man. I am grateful that I live here, because not that my birth family doesn't have amazing things in Colombia, but to live in Colombia versus to live here, that's where, and they are so hell bent on it. That's what bugs me on Instagram, is they post one thing and it's like how Delancey was saying all the other things, adoption is trauma. I understand, yes, there is trauma involved, but you can't blanket it into there's immediate trauma with every single adoptee, because there's not. Yeah. There's just not. And it really, really bugs me. And these people, they just want to make it look disgusting. They want to make it look like adoptive parents are bad. They want to make it look like it's bad that me and Delancey are adoptees that like adoption. They get pissed off that we love it,
that
we're grateful for it. And so to meet people like you, James, it's just so refreshing, because it's like, no, there's probably more people out there like us, but social media, they just push that narrative of everything sucks. Yeah,
absolutely. I haven't met anybody, and I'm 54. I turned 54 this year. I haven't met anybody from the adopted side that has really any complaints. Now, I will say that the foster care system has a lot of the bad vibes, because it's such a diluted system that's not perfect. But like you were saying, I mean, go to some other country. I spent a year in Afghanistan back in 2011, and yeah, we've got it. We're living like kings over here. I promise you.
No.
And everyone in that country would swap places with us in a heartbeat, not think twice. But so I haven't seen a whole lot of adoption problems. Now, the one I was telling you about, the friend of mine that's adopted the 15-year-old here, she's an attorney and had dealt with his fourth adoption, and it's a fourth failed adoption, and now they're adopting him, which is going to be great for him. So he had 4 failed adoptions because of I'm pretty sure there was. The kid probably has issues. The parents had issues or whatever. She's asked me, because I told her this story that I was going to be on this podcast this past Saturday, and she was like, "Oh, you got to give me the link to that whenever it comes out. I've got to see that." And then I was telling her the story about Brooke, how I kind of mentored her, a long time ago. It's like, would you please come and talk to him? I'm like, absolutely. You just let me know what time and what date, and I'll come by your house, and me and him can sit down and talk man to man. I kind of give him a little bit of guidance on that. So. I like to have the platform, not only just being adopted, but having the years of law enforcement dealing with a lot of different issues, for 25 years. It gives me an ease of talking to people. So pretty excited about that. But yeah, so there are failed adoptions out there, and it's not just the parents or just the kid. There can be some combinations. It's almost like sometimes, you just got to find the right fit sometimes. Sometimes it's like me and you, it's just one and done. Sometimes it's not, so. I get it, but I don't understand I'm getting me a shirt made with, what'd you say it was, toxic positivity?
Toxic positivity, which is so weird. With it on it. I was about to say, I have a cricket. I'll make it for you. It's one of those things where like it doesn't make sense to me, because I've always heard the phrase misery loves company, but I don't understand the whole entire. Like, and one of them even said, admittedly, you had a great adoption, but that doesn't, like, don't use your great adoption to invalidate our bad adoption, because like we will always have a bad adoption. And I kind of sat there, and that still resonates with me that person said that, because I'm going but that's not your whole life.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, just because, I know plenty of biological kids that, or I say kids, like they're adults now, but I know some, I can think of 2 right off the top of my head, biological adults who were not adopted and do not have good relationships with their mom, their biological mom. It's like they honestly, one of them has nothing to do with her, and the other one will call her on her birthday and Christmas, and that's it.
Right.
Like, and it's like a happy birthday, Merry Christmas, and that's all they'll do. And it's so interesting to me, because it's almost like they're looking for an excuse.
They are. You nailed it.
Just like, but it also goes back to Melina and I are just like, you can't, like, even when bad things happen in your life, you can't just go, oh, that's the reason why my whole entire life sucks because of this one bad thing that happened, whatever the bad thing is. Yeah. And when you let it just control your life, but that also goes back to what all 3 of us believe, is that God's in control of everything. And until you let that happen, which we actually studied in our discipleship group tonight before I got here, if you don't let that happen, then you are going to just live in misery, which is so sad. I don't get it. I'm very glad you haven't seen this anti-adoption trend, because it is a few disgruntled people who, and some of them may not even be disgruntled. They think they should be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, when you said misery loves company, and that's one thing that I see, and it's the same here, with other things, that people get so upset because someone has something decent, or they had a good experience with something, and they just have to bring them down to their level. It's like, well, I got to bring them down to me because I can't have that. Yeah, you can. A lot of it is mental toughness and intestinal fortitude sometimes to to push through and make things better. Instead of complaining about what your past did, take your future and change it. Change it for somebody else. Don't worry about what happened. I mean, granted, I totally understand that kids have trauma, that they have issues they have to deal with.
Right.
Being adopted and just saying because you're adopted is probably not high on that list versus some of the other things we've dealt with, especially in the law enforcement world, whether it's, physical, mental abuse, true physical, mental abuse and stuff like that. I get it on that one. But if it's something like you're going to blame the adoption process, like you've described what you just said, and that's what they're harping on, well, then be a positive person for somebody else then. Be a rock for somebody, be someone to talk to. Don't just go around and just blame a bunch of stuff. You think that's going to change anything?
No.
Toxic positivity. I'm addicted.
I'm telling you, it just
That's my
sticks
thing.
with you.
That's my thing now.
it just sticks with you. Well,
Wait
and
till
it's
I
interesting.
see you Sunday.
Oh, trust me. All you gotta do is give me your t-shirt size because I gotta make a shirt for church on Sunday anyway. So just give me your t-shirt size and I can make it for you. The thing that's so interesting too is like the point that I love that you're making. It's be the person you needed. Be who you need. Like,
absolutely nailed it. You nailed it.
I just don't understand why, that's I think that's the reason why Melanie and I are so still on fire about this podcast, because I remember when she reached out to me and she asked me, I'm like, yes, absolutely. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something.
Yes.
Because it's spreading awareness. Like, it's not even like spreading awareness. Not all trauma comes from, I have adoption trauma, but it's not from my adoption.
Same with me.
It's from calling it what it is. It's from meeting my biologicals.
Yeah.
And that came later after realizing that not every traumatic experience has to be categorized. Sometimes just bad things happen. Or sometimes just something doesn't work out. That doesn't mean that your life is supposed to be miserable. Just like he said, find the joy, be encouragement for somebody else. Don't just ick.
Yeah.
Just ick. Toxic positivity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you talk, every incident doesn't have to be a catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people go to these days. You have the social media stuff that just, one person on there gets 2 or 3 followers, and there's 5 followers, and there's 7 followers. And then, you just start spewing this negativity, and then everybody else wants to go down the negative train. It's like, come on. You really want to live your life like that? Yes, there's negativity in the world. There's negativity people deal with every day. Depends on how you deal with it is the key. And like you said, find the positive. Something like you said, you coined the phrase that was perfect, is be the person you needed, to someone else. I mean, it's really that simple. And we get so, I say we as society get so caught up in so many I don't even know what to describe it as, and then you go onto your social media stuff and you start talking, or you posting, or you're typing this, you're typing that. Next thing you know, it's well, really?
Yeah, I was about to say, you just had a human being walk in your background.
Yeah, they're inside the house, so I came out the
shirtless.
Shirtless. That must have been Dylan. Yeah, that's awesome. I wonder which one it was.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
There he goes again.
He doesn't know I'm out here on this, so he hasn't got a clue.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
That's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, but anyway, then everything doesn't have to be that just catastrophic misery.
Right.
Some things are just really not that bad. You make them out to be that bad.
Yeah. Right.
I love
that's true, and it's very true. And I think it's those of us who have been through bad stuff can help people reframe the way they're looking at things, especially if they're a fellow adoptee, or of somebody who wants to do adoption, or just really honestly a human being in general.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you see people all the time who you would not know their backstories or shit. And then you get to know them and you're like, wow, look what you have done to make your life happy and to be at peace with this, when you could harbor that anger, these freaking nasty adoptees. I'm calling it what it is. These seriously, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. There's so many people that want to rise above it, And I swear to you, these people who do want to be negative about it, it's like, where the hell is God in this? Like, are you not
that
reaching?
Part.
Are you trying not to pray? Are you not trying to figure this shit out? Because he is there. Like, he is there, but you are just blocking him out. So you can have all these people be like, oh yeah, let's go. Let's be negative. No, because people don't want to be around that shit.
Well, and you can't, they say they want change too. Like, that's the part that really bothers me. They're like, we want change. We want change. Well, what are you doing to help make that change? Like, there was, we've had people on this podcast that are social workers that are trying to make changes within families. We've had people on this podcast who have nonprofits where they help raise funds for adoption, for families to be able to adopt, because adoption is expensive. I mean, that's just the long and short of it. It is. There are others who have stepped up to be foster parents because they want to be different foster parents than other ones. I mean, so anytime with these negative ones, especially I'm sure with you within law enforcement background, it's like you're sitting here complaining about something, but what are you doing to be different?
Yeah.
Like, what are you sacrificing outside of your words?
Absolutely. You sit there and complain. And some people, and I use this analogy all the time, some people are going to complain even if you gave them $1 million because it was all in 20s. That's just too much money to carry.
Right. No, it's true.
Yeah.
I will load a pickup truck down with $1 million worth of pennies and drive to the bank and smile on my face.
Agree. I agree.
I would be happy as a clam. I would be rolling those pennies, happy as a clam, just watching Netflix, enjoying life.
Watching Netflix. Woo!
But some people they get so negative and they can't turn it off. I think it's almost like an addiction that no matter what you do or say, they're going to find the negative in everything. And that's the way society is just driven thing. I mean, negativity sells. Look at the news these days. There's never anything positive on there. When something positive does happen, it gets a fraction of the time that misery does. And then that's what sells. That's what makes the commercials come on. And that's what sells the newspapers, if they even make newspapers anymore, So
it's like I haven't seen one in forever. If I'm being honest.
They, from what I understand, they do still print the local newspaper here. I just don't know that many people that actually get it. Because it's all digital now. As we were actually talking about that at work today. It's all digital now. Well, and it's interesting too, because they just don't, like you said, they just always have something negative to say. They always have something to say, and it's just kind of like even people who have said, like you said, I have no desire to meet my biologicals unless there was like an illness or something. I totally respect that, because like, to me, when you say like, I just don't want to meet him, like, it is what it is. Like, and I mean, I said that for years before I actually did. I was like, I just don't care. Like, it's just not a thing. Like, I just always brushed it off. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. I'm always intrigued by the ones who are like, absolutely not, because like they left me. You were adopted at 3 days old, 5 days old, and they placed you. And I've met your parents; they're kind of awesome. So why are we mad? Like, what is happening here? Like, I don't. It's almost like, I don't know. It's weird. The whole thing is just weird.
It's definitely does not come from a negative standpoint. If I was to meet them under any circumstances, whatever it was, whether I wanted to find them or they found me or whatever, first thing I'm saying is thank you and giving them a hug, regardless. And that's straight up. There's no ill will at all to my biological parents at all, because do you want to take that chance of it being, well, maybe my parents were millionaires, or maybe they're living under a bridge down by the river. I mean, you just I'm not willing to take that chance and risk what I've had in my life with my parents and my family. It's like I always tell people, I don't regret anything in my life, because if I regret one thing that I did, I don't have what I have sitting right here, right now.
Oh,
I'm not willing to give that up.
That's so good. I know
that's the quote. That was the quote. Just in case, like, mark that. That's the quote. That was really good.
I love that.
I appreciate that. Well, that's something I've lived by for a long time.
I actually have an interesting follow-up question. Have you, I know, like, was your adoption closed?
Oh, yeah, good question.
or was it open? Like, what was it like? Do you meaning? Always like, what do you mean?
Meaning?
I'm assuming, and it's always dangerous to assume, but I'm assuming it was closed because mine was closed. Yours was closed, right?
Oh, yeah,
yours was closed.
Mm-hmm.
Where
no contact with the birth parents.
No contact with the birth parents. Like,
yeah. So it was closed. There was no contact that I know of. That I never had any contact with them. There was never, anything like that. So I have no clue. Nobody in my family knows. So if they do, they never told me all these years.
Gotcha.
That's fair.
Yeah. But yeah, closed.
Follow up. Have you ever considered doing 23andMe ancestry or anything like that?
No.
Nope.
Couple of reasons.
I was gonna say, can I ask why?
Yeah, like I'm curious why too. Yes.
One reason, I'm in law enforcement.
Fair.
And when you do that, and this is a long shot, but through court subpoenas, if there's a case being worked, and let's just say you're a suspect and I need DNA evidence and you're not willing to give it, I can go subpoena it through 23andMe and get it.
Wow.
That's just like
glad I'm not a criminal.
That's right. That's why I don't even have an Alexa in my house, because it's always listening. No matter, you don't have to say Alexa to get it. It's always listening. Of course, we all have these, our little cell phones that are listening all the time because you see the ads pop up on everything you have. But I'm just one of those old kind, like, no, I just, I am what I am. I take I claim the Murray name completely.
I love it.
I claim that I'm an Irish background, even if I'm not, because that's what I was adopted into. So that's what I am. I'm a Viking at heart.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
So yeah, so and I know a lot of people have done those things and they want to know. To me, my ancestral past doesn't have anything to do with my future. The way I look at it, I mean, something. It's just something that just never really crossed my mind. And then the law enforcement sounds like, hey, somebody could probably subpoena that one day, or take it and clone you. If you want to start going down the rabbit hole, somebody can clone you.
People out there, if you want to clone me and you go get my DNA from 23andMe, good luck reining her in. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, no, I'm not one of those tinfoil hat kind of people, but I just thought it was funny. It would be crazy. All of a sudden, the story breaks next week. 23andMe has been cloning people all for 3 years.
I'm telling you that would not. It would not surprise me.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if a UFO landed in my backyard right now. I'd be like, figures.
I'd just be like, it's like, give me those clones to take care of my children. I'd be fine with that. Bring all the clones to help me raise while my husband travels for work. Do the yard work, do the housework. I'm okay with that.
There's a movie like that. It's called Multiplicity. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it, Milena, because that's basically the premise behind that. Just throwing that out there. Yeah,
What movie?
Multiplicity.
I haven't heard of that.
Well, you look that up. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because it's funny that when I did a 23andMe recently, just because like I felt like I wasn't getting the whole story. And I am so terrified of getting in trouble in general that, of course, I like walk the straight and narrow. Even when I was like lost, I still walk the straight and narrow because I'm so terrified of going to jail and being arrested. I'm so terrified. Like, I'm terrified. Even now, it's terrified. So when you said they could subpoena your DNA, I was like, oh my God, oh wait, I don't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Never mind, we're fine.
And it's an extreme long shot, but I just it's
just the principle,
the principle. So, knowing your fear of being arrested, April 1st next year is going to be really fun.
I will stay home.
Why?
I will stay home. I will not leave. I have this huge April Fool's Day because I have this like huge fear of like being arrested.
Like, why? But now I get it.
This huge fear. Like it's like I am terrified. Like the first time I had to go through a roadblock in my entire life, I went through a roadblock a year ago, I think, in Lamar County. Keep in mind, in Lamar County, one of those back roads. I don't even see them because no lights are on, nothing. And my niece saw it. She was like, Delancey, slow down. I was like, what? And I looked and went, pull up. And who is it but our mutual friend and two of his buddies that were doing a roadblock. Oh my gosh. And they were immediately giving me a hard time. And I was like, listen, if you just let me, jokingly, I had my dog. I was like, jokingly, if you let me go, I'll give you my dog. And like, seriously? They like got all like, seriously, we'll take her. And I was like, absolutely not. You would have to tase me. 3 tasers pop out. Don't tempt us. And I was like, I'm leaving. Like, but I had this initial fear because I didn't see our mutual friend. I didn't know the other two. They were like, hey, listen, we need to see your license. We're just doing and I'm just like, I don't know where my ID is. Like, I don't even know where my purse is. I don't even know who I am. And my niece is over there going, she's panicking too. Like, we're both panicked. We've done nothing wrong. Nothing. Like, absolutely nothing wrong. I'm taking her home from my parents' house. Nothing wrong. And I'm still like, I'm gonna get arrested. So again, going back to the original, the second he said they could subpoena your DNA for 23andMe, I'm like, oh my God, my DNA could be subpoena. Oh wait, I don't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Dude, what if my dad's like a Colombian drug lord? Then I'm in a shithole. With my 23andMe.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy. Like,
wait a minute. I didn't even think about it. Wait, so question, law enforcement side. If her biological father is a Colombian drug lord, how does that affect her here? Does it? No, I don't. I feel like it shouldn't.
I don't think it should, because legally, if you get to the legal side of it, she's not related to him anymore.
That's true.
That is true.
I mean, biologically, she's related to the biological parents, but legally, she's not related to them at all.
So if he dies, I'll tell him to give me all his money. I'm just kidding.
See, all of us have been bought and paid for, so we belong to somebody else now. That's just the way it is. You know,
I love it. No, I love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, that is absolutely fantastic.
You talk about adoption being expensive and stuff like that. I'm sure it's always kind of been pricey, even if you go back in time with the value of money versus the value of income and stuff like that. And I don't know if this is true or not, but the judge that did my adoption here is, I think he's still living. His daughter and I actually ended up going to high school together, and he was friends with my parents. And the joke was that my parents just bought him a really nice bottle of wine, and that's how much it cost to get me. Now, I don't know if it's actually true, but that's what they used to say all the time. So I thought that was pretty cool. So,
all it cost was a bottle of wine.
How sweet would that be? I hope it wasn't $12 ones you can get at Corner Market right now.
I was about to say, what kind? Like Corner Market, or are we talking like a collector's item?
Of course, back in those days, back in the late 60s, they didn't have, you had to go to the liquor store to get the high dollar stuff. There was no, you didn't buy stuff in the grocery store like you do now.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so, but
I love it.
But yeah, so this is awesome.
Here's what I'm thinking, Delancey, and yes, James is going to hear it, but we need to have a conference of some sorts, and James better come, because he just is like not only like the adoption, but like I would listen to you as a motivational speaker. I'm not even kidding you, James. Like, just dropping like truth bombs. I'd be like, yes, speak. I would love it. Like, you just have so much wisdom, and I love it. I'm gonna be crazy.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Oh no, we will, because it's such wisdom, but it's also so lighthearted that it doesn't like completely like punch you in the gut, but like it resonates with you.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it's just one of those things where you learn delivery the hard way. Like I said, earlier in our thing, I did 17 years on a SWAT team, and there's nothing easy about hanging out with those guys and being on a special operations team like that. It's a totally different animal, totally different monster than regular law enforcement. And so I've had to learn to dial back my delivery since I'm not in that setting anymore. And so it's always nice to kind of, deliver some truth bombs, but, subtly land it in there versus just dropping it on you,
right.
Which I can go that way if I need to. So,
oh no,
just ask my kids.
Well, those are your kids, which is good. They need to have those kind of truth bombs.
Yeah,
that part.
Absolutely.
I understand that. Well, when I finally come to Mississippi, I better meet you. Delancey, you got a lot of people that I got to come around and meet.
Know.
I would love to.
Where do you live at? Where do you live?
I'm in Utah.
Utah. Wow. I've always wanted to go to Utah.
Well, you should come. Hit me up if you come. It's
I
hot
was
as
gonna
hell
say
right now, but
oh no. You don't know hot until you're down here.
It's
So
100. It was
my husband can
109. It reached 100 and something today with heat index of 115 with
you guys have
humidity of like
humidity.
900%.
Oh my
Yeah, it's horrible.
gosh.
Horrible.
It is.
Okay,
It
I won't
is
complain.
miserable here.
I won't complain about our 102.
Yeah. And I was going to tell you, James, fun fact, Melena and I have actually never met in person.
Wow. That's shocking. That really is. Y'all hit it off really well.
But we talk like we're best friends. We really do. Like we text and all the stuff. So it's like totally all the time. Fine. Like
well, that's really cool. That is really cool. See, here we go with some more toxic positivity about adoption. Look at the friendship you made. Y'all would have never met if y'all would have never if y'all would have been adopted, y'all would have never met. You wouldn't be sitting here talking. And so there you go.
So true.
And that's something that 100%. And that's something that like I'm sure you can agree with us. It's like if we weren't adopted, we wouldn't be who we are. Same thing. Like we would have never met each other. We wouldn't be who we are. We would never be where we are. And that's that. I mean, we both agree, and I'm sure you agree with this too. That's the reason why we know God has a hand in adoption. Absolutely. That doesn't mean like, and I actually heard this the other day. It's like whenever people say everything happens for a reason, that doesn't mean like you went through this really awful thing because you needed to go through this really awful thing. It's like maybe you had to experience something that was trying.
Right.
In order to be able to help somebody else to go back to like what you're doing with, your friends' kids, being able to tell them the positivity behind being adopted and then sharing that story. You wouldn't have that.
Right.
If you had not been adopted. Like God knew you needed this story to be able to reach others. Yes, in law enforcement and getting back into law enforcement, but just in life in general. It's just I love how it comes full circle. Well, that was an oblong circle. There we
go. We're not judging.
Please don't judge. Please don't do that. Because Well, Melena, did you have any more questions?
No. I love this. Like seriously, James, thanks for taking some time out of your night, especially I know it's later where you guys are at to do this. Like I love it. And I love this is probably really I love when we have male adoptees come on because women will speak until the morning, like the sunshine comes up. But like I love when guys come on because it's so different and such a different perspective. And I love it. Like give me all the men that will come on and speak, please, because it's just awesome. Like really, I love it.
Kind of get into that, men are men kind of deal. But, I learned a long time ago that, talking through some things and being open about certain things makes life a little bit easier. Early in my career, you're 10 foot tall and you're bulletproof and, we don't have feelings, we got to go do this, that, and the other. And after enough traumatic incidents, it's like, I need to talk to somebody. Okay. I know I've got some PTSD on board. I need to talk to somebody. And, that hit me pretty hard, last year after I retired because I wasn't solving everybody else's problems anymore. I had to deal with my own. So, a lot of talking and luckily I've got a great wife who's been with me for 25 years and, has always been there to
damn, that's awesome. Congratulations. I was going to say that's awesome. Amazing.
That is an amazing feat, especially in law enforcement. Some of our guys just aren't the most honest in the world and they, and I've tried to mentor to some of those guys as best as I can, but some of them just don't listen. But anyway, a whole other podcast,
whole other topic.
Yeah, and then we'll have to go on to the other channel and talk about that or whatever. So create another one, spinoff or something,
I love that.
But yeah, I will come back and talk anytime you want me to. I'm obviously you can tell I like to talk. I'm very comfortable with it. I've been an instructor for years. I've taught classes all the time, so this is very, very comfortable for me to sit here and just have open discussions and really not plan anything. Just kind of let it organically roll out and go. Yep. So anytime y'all want me back on, just let me know.
I love it so much.
Oh, expect that at some point in time in the future because let it happen organically. That's pretty much like our motto. Just let it happen.
No, it's true. Because we think of things and we're like, oh, that person can come on and talk about that. I guarantee you that's going to happen with you. We're like, Delancey, Get him to come back on. Talk about
100%.
this. Really though.
100%.
So cool.
Okay. So if we don't have any more questions, actually, no, wait, that's a lie. I have one question. I love how Milena was like, what? You do? Well, Milena, you're usually the one that asks this question. So it kind of threw me off that you didn't ask him.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll let you do it. No, good. You take the reins on
no,
it.
because I'm not gonna word it right. I'm gonna word it wrong. So I need you to. I did the intro. You got to. You have to close us out if I did the intro.
You butthead. Okay. Anyway, James, I'm gotta think of like where I could. What is advice? Oh, see, this is hard because I don't know like just because you love adoption. What advice would you give? Ooh, see, I don't know. This one's hard with him because he just loves it so much. Okay, what advice would you give to adoptive parents who are looking to adopt right now from like your perspective as an adoptee? What advice would you give people on adoption? There we go. Let's say that. What advice would you give people on adoption?
Bam. Oh wow.
Took me a minute to get there, but I got there.
to definitely, go into it with an open mind and an open heart for sure, because not only are parents that are adopting kids, giving a kid a possibly a great life that they might not be having, but that kid's going to give them joy and blessings as well along the way. And so that open mind, open heart mentality is what I would tell them. It's like, you're not doing this because it's a fad. You're not doing this because your neighbors did it. You're not doing it. You're doing it for the love of a child and the love of being a parent. You may not be blessed with the fact of being able to have your own biological kids, but that is not what makes a parent. There's a lot of people that have been biologically have kids that are not parents. So that would be my advice right there.
Damn, another reason why we need you to come be a motivational speaker.
Right?
That's so good.
I have done a few of those things. I'm definitely big into motivational stuff. Some of it gets a little hardcore for me, but yeah. So
no, like I said, I'm just gonna go tell everybody I know somebody from SWAT. Tell my
There
husband as soon as he calls me, I'm gonna be like, guess what? Guess about the guy that we
Well, if I don't have so much on my Facebook page, but if you go to my Instagram page, there's a lot of stuff on there from it, a lot of stuff I've done.
Find you.
Go
find you. Delancey, did you tag
James
him?
Let's see.
I tagged him in our picture.
No, it's fine. I'm following you now. There we go.
Dunsy.
Done. Anyway, okay. Did you want to close it out, or do you want me to close it out?
You can close it out. You're lucky you got me to do the intro. I'm always like, lots of words.
But you're good at it. Anyway, okay, again, I'll reiterate. I've already said it 50 times. But James, thanks again so much for coming on, sharing your story with us, taking some of the time out of your night to do this with us. We really appreciate it, and we know it's going to help people out there. So thank you so much for doing this with us.
Well, thank you guys for having me on here. I really appreciate it. I like having platforms to talk no matter what the topic is. So thank you very much. It was very therapeutic for me after the long day I had.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.